Greetings, coming to you on April 4th, which is, for better or for worse, a very sad day in our history. For one, Martin Luther King Jr. was shot on April 4th, 1968, and in 1975, 50 years ago on this day, the Operation Babylift plane crashed. Now, I was there. I wasn't there anymore. We left on the 3rd of April, our family. However, we were for some time meant to be on that Babylift flight. So it wasn't until I was a grown woman that I realized that I had spent most of my life suffering from survival guilt because I thought I was supposed to be on that plane and I was alive because orphans had died. It's when I realized that I recognized the heavy burden I'd been carrying, and it eased things up a bit, but it's still a hard couple of days for me, knowing that we got out of Vietnam safely in 1975. My mom, my 6 brothers and sisters, and I, and a Vietnamese friend, while the following day, many, many children died. I was going to just talk about it, but then I realized I read part of this great book, this book I wrote, and I'm going to read this part because it captures the whole part of the Babylift tragedy. So it was early April when my mom was scrambling with last-minute preparations to get out. During those first days in April, she stacked the many boxes of household items to be hopefully picked up later by the shipping company. To be sure that nothing invaluable was lost, she mailed packages of family mementos, stamp collections, and clothes ahead to her parents' house in Idaho. She brought a new large purse that would accommodate the paperwork for the 8 of us. We all had to have shot records and passports, and it must have been a cartload. As she was organizing it, my brother Chris came downstairs with his fishing line and asked if she could carry it in her purse so that he and Grandpa could fish once they arrived in Boise. Well, sweetheart, my purse will be so full of passports and shot records, I'm sure I won't have room for a fishing line, she said. Besides, I think Grandpa will have some to fish with. As he walked away, my mother's heart felt heavy at the thought of all the small hopes and dreams that must die with an ending like this one. She felt almost ashamed to think how much she longed for a washer and dryer now when so much more was at stake, especially for those they would be leaving behind. When she let the 2 maids go, she gave them a cash bonus, despite the earlier incidents with the missing jewelry. The cook and the driver would stay on to take care of my father as long as he remained, but she gave each of them jewelry that they could sell: a pearl necklace and a gold chain for Hua, and a diamond ring to Mr. B. And just a note, I received these today. This makes today a happy day. My brother Jimmy had these from my mother and had them mailed to me from Thailand, where he had left them some years ago. So these are my mother's pearls. She would have given something similar to Hua upon leaving. So she would not be able to help our driver, Mr. B, with his request about placing him with a new job. He'd written us a letter on April 1st, but she hoped that my father would be able to make something happen, perhaps even offering him a spot on his evacuation list. So here's the Babylift part. Our original departure was April 4th. We were to fly out on the initial Operation Babylift flight, a project launched by President Ford with an effort to save as many orphans, mostly Amerasian, as possible. Many of these children looked nearly completely Caucasian, with blue eyes and blonde hair. Left in Vietnam, they would meet with vicious treatment by the North Vietnamese, who would see them as terrible reminders of the American presence in their country. The operation would eventually bring some 3,000 children to the United States. My mother had volunteered to be one of the chaperones since she and my sister Michelle had spent much time with the orphans over the previous months. The flight was just one of many that was scheduled. The C-5A Galaxy transport was to be one of the largest planes available, but it became apparent that a family our size, would be taking seats that refugee children would otherwise have. So my mother changed our reservations to a commercial Pan Am flight departing the day before. Our trip to the States, for various harrowing reasons, took 2 full days, and as soon as we landed, we heard of the fate of the first 2 tragic Operation Babylift plane. Shortly after takeoff, a warning light had come on, and the pilot had attempted to make a wide turn to get back to Tonsanut. But before he could complete it, the bottom of the airplane was torn apart by an explosion. The gaping hole immediately sucked the air from the cabin, instantly killing some of the 250 orphans and 50 volunteers aboard. Others were spewed into the air, still alive. Wildly out of control, the plane plummeted to the ground, careening nearly half a mile through the thick mud of the rice paddies. As it slid to a halt, water filled the cabin, drowning even more victims. The tragedy struck those in Saigon like a blow to the heart. People flooded to the airport to lend a hand, to give blood, or to help unload the rescue helicopters that had shuttled the injured from the crash site back to Tonsanut. As the children were carried off the choppers, you couldn't tell if they were dead or alive. Nearly every one of them was covered head to toe with mud. They were limp little rags, one rescue worker said. At the time, it was thought to be the second worst crash in aviation history, taking more than 200 children and every adult but one. Later, it would be discovered that over half the children did survive, but the losses were devastating nonetheless. My father wrote to my mother that night. He shared his anguish. Sorry, Maurice, choke up. He shared his anguish in 5 words. What a tragedy. I cry. Rumors spread quickly that the crash was caused by the Viet Cong artillery fire, but the truth was much more unnerving. It was the result of a simple latch that had not been secured properly. In the stressful atmosphere that was Saigon in April 75, someone had failed to take the time to follow standard safety checks, and it had reaped this disastrous result. What other tragedies might occur as the intensity of the evacuation picked up speed and the press of the enemy armies forced even greater panic? And worse, how could those still in the country hold on to any hope when it felt as if the country were dying? April 4th, 1975, Operation Babylift. A dark mark in a dark month, in a tragic era. I'm Kat Fitzpatrick. I'm the author of For the Love of Vietnam, and I lived in Saigon for 10 months from July 1974 to April 75. It wasn't my choice. We were there because my father worked for the CIA in a radio station called Mother Vietnam. And you can read about that in this book or check out my other Substack blogs. I've posted almost everything I have, so if you just want to check it out there, or I also have lots of videos on YouTube. I am doing different speaking engagements this April in honor of the 50th anniversary to commemorate that time so long ago that was terribly tragic, and yet the effects still live with us today. Thank you for listening, and do take care.